Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in. This is normally a topic that I would actually handle through a live stream on YouTube. But I decided that I was going to hit it here on Facebook first, and then I'll eventually move it over to YouTube at some point during the day. I am uh, without any doubt whatsoever knowing that I'm about to piss some people off. But when I started this thing some years ago, I told you then, and those who have followed me through the ups and downs on my other platforms and channels or whatever, the good rides, the bad rides, the losing of the channel, the rebuilding, and all the stuff we're going. The one thing that I've always told you is that I'm not here for popularity. I'm not here to get your likes. I'm not here to get your shares. I'm not here to get your pats on the back. I played that game in the first half of my life, and actually, the way that I'm built, my ego sustains itself. I don't need anybody to tell me who I am or tell me I'm good or I'm whatever. I'm good with me. So when I share from my heart. I share from a desire to enlighten people. I'm not here to judge anyone or be condescending or down, but I am here to be boldly and unapologetically honest about what I see, what I determine. I'm also never at a point where I think I know it all or I'm always right. I can be corrected. And if someone can produce solid information and evidence that what I've said is wrong, I have retracted statements. I have issued apologies on my platforms. I'm not above that, but I'm going to talk to you. So Nike created, those who don't know, Nike created a special edition Air Force One for Colin Kaepernick. Those who don't know, they inked a new deal with him. I want to say back in October or November, they inked a new deal with him for an undisclosed amount of money at the time. I'm not sure what it was, but this is the second time that they used exposure from Cap to drive the market as far as their stock prices and their market margins are concerned. I don't know the exact amount, but just from glancing and seeing what was going on, I know that the company itself is worth over 100 billion. That has increased, I think, about probably 20 million since the deal, or maybe a little more than 20 million since the deal first hit. So my thing isn't that, when they released these shoes, they sold out within an hour. And everybody's online talking about a win and how everybody won and like, so what I want to do is I want to bring some clarity to this. And it's gonna come from a couple of different perspectives and hopefully bring some lucidity to what is going on and how we have to be. See, there's a difference in being consumer minded. There's a difference in being revolutionary minded. There's a difference in being aware of how things work and how things go on and what can be done and cannot be done to address situations. So if you are a person who believes that white supremacy has a negative impact on us and that white supremacy played a role in Colin Kaepernick not being able to get a job in the NFL, okay. So that's the first thing. So white supremacy has to be anchored by something. White supremacy is anchored by economic power. White supremacy is actually the guardian of the gate of elitism. Elitism is the protection and the fluidity and protection of the wealthy elite. And so racism and white supremacy is used as a gateway protector. In other words, that's the easiest way to identify those we definitely don't want to be a part of it and kept out, and we work our way through. We use the middle class as a buffer to protect against the larger poorer class. So that's important. So what am I getting at here? If you just want to say, hey, look, man, I like the shoes. I want to buy the shoes dope, whatever. Buy the shoes dope. I saw them. I thought they was dope. I couldn't buy them for a couple of reasons. Here's why. Number one is whenever there's a voice, there's always an opposition to quiet the voice. when Colin Kaepernick did what he did, initially started as something that nobody even knew he was doing it for the first couple of weeks because he was just sitting down while everybody else was standing. Somebody caught a hold to it, questioned it. When they asked him about it in the locker room, he told them. It became a real big issue. He sat down with a veteran, and the veteran said it would probably be more respectful to guys like us. We see what you're saying and we riding with you, but I think it'll be better accepted by veterans if you just kneel. So instead of standing and putting his hand on his chest, he knelt for the remainder of the season. And after that, he literally opted out of his contract. He wasn't cut. He opted out of his contract, and then no one else would pick him up. Okay, so then that became the battle cry. Everybody was talking about, we're going to boycott the NFL. We're going to do all of this. And Colin had a voice, and he was speaking. He was sharing why he was doing it. He was very vocal. All of a sudden, back in, I want to say about July, Nike got a hold to him, and they started pushing this new campaign with Colin as the center focus, and Colin got real quiet. And this is before the big contract a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago, whatever it was. So Colin got real quiet. In other words, we're going to give you some money. So even, he didn't need to get back in the NFL for money-wise. Number one is he was still okay, and then he got more money from that little one-off deal with Nike. So Nike then turns around and signs a deal with him because his popularity goes up again with the stunt with the NFL, where he outsmarted them, quote unquote. At least that's the way the play played out. And you have to really keep up to know some of the things I'm saying. I'll go to my channel and check it out because I broke all of this down. So it was put out. So basically he showed that they really weren't trying to give him a chance. They were really trying to set him up for failure, blah, blah, blah. And so everybody even got on this bandwagon even more. Okay, so then he ends up with this Nike deal. Why? Because he's popular, he's hot right now. And they proved that by selling it. So here's my thing. You can't say you're fighting racism. You can't say you're fighting white supremacy when one of the number one catalysts that maintains the economic power structure that allows white supremacy to have its force is consumerism and by way of capitalism. You can't turn around and support a white-owned company, white-ran company worth 120, 130, it's over 100 billion. It might be even as high as close to $150 billion company that has increased its value by over 20 billion since signing that deal with Cap. And the only people that have benefited from it are shareholders, Cap, and anybody tied to them, like their managers and their agents and things of that nature. Not one thing has happened. One thing we haven't heard a lot of is Cap speaking with the vocal power and force that he was speaking with before he left the NFL. So what happened is we got a voice quieted. We got people rallying behind him, and he's not saying anything right now. But even if he was saying something, even if he still had a voice, if the actions that are being taken are not funneling economic resources into the black community or into the hands of those who can actually take that and move it. And I know there's a lot of people going to sit up and say, I'm just hating. No, I'm not. That's a business move. From the side of capitalism, that's what you do. You ride the wave, you find what's going to sell, and you sell it. And that's what happened. It's simple business. So from that perspective, do your thing. But if we're talking about truly empowering black people, that was no win for black people. We have to stop living vicariously through celebrities. We got to stop living vicariously through those who we perceive to have reached a certain level of success that honestly and truly we don't believe we're going to achieve ourselves. So we live vicariously through movie stars, through athletes, through highly successful business people, entertainers, whatever. We live through them. That's why we fight so hard when something happens to one of them and they're going down. We fight so hard and we charge so hard because we're so connected to them from a vicarious relationship with them that we take it personal. And so we're not standing, most of us aren't standing with Cap because we really and truly understand what Cap was really standing for initially and what he was fighting for initially. We're riding with him because we view him as a black man who has been under assault of a white system and we connect with him and we're riding with him without really knowing what we're riding with him for or why we're riding with him, because we're simply living vicariously through him. He's done something we feel we're never going to do. He's done something as an athlete, as a millionaire, and as an activist that we're not going to do. We're not going to put our jobs on the line to go out there and stand for something and speak for something that could cost us our well-being. So we're going to do it through him. And then we're going to take every victory that he takes, although we don't benefit from it. And we're going to miss the fact that he's backed off of his stance and that he's not moving forward with the veracity and the force that he was initially moving for, because he's getting paid not to. But more importantly, you can't fight racism by enriching white capitalists. Nike is a white-owned company. Just because they paid a black person, they pay a lot of black people to do a lot of things, but they pay them a fraction of what they're generating. Michael Jordan took Nike as being a third-tier athletic company behind Adidas and Reebok and put them on the map. Now, he became a billionaire, but he still got a fraction of what they got. And now Colin Kaepernick is getting a fraction. I don't know how much he's getting off of each shoe. I haven't been able to find all of that. I just saw it and I knew some of the facts. I knew that Nike's over 100 billion strong, probably closer to 150 billion strong, and that they've grown over 20-something million since the signing of the deal. They jumped, I think, 15 million from that stunt they did with him in the summer, where everybody was going around putting the Nike Just Do It things, the Just Do It campaign, and they were putting their pictures up on it, and everybody was sharing it, and Nike stock was steady rising. Nike stock was steady rising. Now, again, if you want to go out and buy you some Nike stock, that's what you should be thinking about. Now, putting yourself in a better position to build wealth for you and your family. But if you're talking about the true nature of white supremacy racism, you're off base. Neely Fuller Jr. Is famous for saying that until you understand white supremacy racism, he said, racism, white supremacy, how it works, how it impacts you, everything you think you know about it will only confuse you. And I see it all the time, where you think you understand it because you're looking at it. Number one is most of us confuse racism with bigotry, two totally different things. See, we have black bigots. We don't have black racists, though. And most white people aren't really truly racist, they're bigots. In order to truly execute racism, you have to have the power to actually act on your bigotry. See, now, while we have some wealthy black people that can impact some white people, we don't have any blacks that it can impact whites as a whole. So in other words, when we have that kind of power, then we can be considered racist, and then we can sit up and say, okay, now we have an even playing field. My problem is that we actually think we did something by buying up all the shoes, like all of a sudden we won. No, we didn't won. Nike won, Cap won, to whatever extent his contract is tied into those shoe sales with Nike. I don't know how that contract is set up. I'm assuming it's a pretty decent setup, just by how it went down and how everybody was hyping it when it happened, and knowing how Nike structures its contracts. So here's the thing. It's important for us to understand how things work. That's like the thing I've been really preaching and teaching. Right, right, Marcus, exactly. The whole thing is we have to understand how things work. One of the reasons that we consistently lose is we don't understand how things work. We constantly respond with emotion. We constantly respond with a narrative that's superficial and hand-dressed and given to us. We never truly take the time to study, to read, to gain an understanding of how things work. The media, anything's being pumped high in the media has never been good for us. I don't care how it looks on the surface, it's never been good for us. If it's being pumped on the media, if it's been hyped up on the media, if you're getting a lot of heavy dose of it, be leery of it, because in some kind of way it's benefiting them, if nothing more than distracting us from what we should really be focusing on. My thing is, again, I have nothing against Cap. I think that, he bailed. I think that he took an easy way out. But here's my thing. Understanding black people and how black people will shout and cheer and tell you to do stuff, and then when you do it, they'll sit back and look at you like you crazy and won't be there for you. Get your money, Cap, but don't sell yourself as being a black spokesperson, a black representative, a black leader, a black activist, because we have real people with real boots on the ground that's taking major hits. We've got people laying their lives down. You know, we ran off and forgot about Darren Seals, who stood up and gave us the truth. I mean, the truth, up until the point where they took him. He wasn't the only one. They lost 6 people mysteriously from that movement in Ferguson that we don't even talk about anymore, that birthed Black Lives Matter, which is a joke, if you really want to do the research. But that was coming from the same capitalist movement and money, like from George Soros, that we sitting up funding and buying into and spending our money. You can't spend your money into the system that's oppressing you. I told you this 6 years ago. I told you that when you consistently spend your money into an economy of the people who are oppressing you, you are literally financing your own demise. Now, because we don't have an infrastructure for hardly anything, there are certain things we've got to give them money for. Shoot, I can almost guarantee you that your utility company is a white-owned company. All your utility companies, right? The bank that financed your home and your car, probably white-owned, white-ran. I'm just talking about things you got to do, but there's a certain, you don't have to have those Air Forces. And it's not just that you go out and buy the Air Forces. It's actually strategically, if you talk about, if you like them, that's a strategic time to buy those. Now, personally, if you're going to take a hard stand, you don't buy them. That's a bunch of stuff that I wear now that I would not have wore 15 years ago. Because every time I look up, I'm like, and there's some things I have to buy, because after a while, I'll be walking around here with nothing because everything is freaking white on. So if I can't get it from black, I'm just going to be screwed. But a lot of stuff that I used to buy and think so highly of, I don't do anymore. Number one is it saves a lot of money. Number two, I understand what's going on. But if you're going to be strategic, if you just got to have them, when that stuff is first released, is not the time to buy it. Why? Because the faster the shoe sells out, the more rapid the stock rises. The more rapid the stock rises, the more market power that they're going to have, and they're driving right now off the chain. If you go look up Nike right now, the growth in the last 60 days is unbelievable. The company's worth over $100-something billion. So they can make moves like this. They can, and just think, just 30-some years ago, they weren't even the #1 shoe company, athletic shoe company. You know, I think they had Reebok, then Adidas, then even Converse was ahead of them at one point in the early 80s when they first hit the scene. And then the Air Jordan took off. Then you had all this other Air Forces and all this other stuff took off. And they've been around, Air Forces have been around forever. But, you know, they became popular again in the 90s and the early 2000s. And again, it was black people that made them popular. What I'm saying is this. By simply understanding how things work, you can be in a better strategic position to actually make a difference. Now, if you, like I said, if you're a person that said, man, I ain't worried about all that, I'm going to go out and get me something I like that, you know, I ain't even hearing that. That's you. I can't tell a person how to think, what to be involved in. That's a situation. But you can't be a person talking about you fighting racism and thinking that that's a smart move to go out and drive up the stock value of a white-ran company. You cannot think that that's a good idea. You can't think that that makes sense. You are financing your own demise every time you spend money into a white economy. That's why it's so important to start building a black economy. But we won't do that because it's uncomfortable. It's not popular. Nobody's going to recognize the brand names you're wearing. Nobody's going to understand why you're not dressed this way. You don't look this way. You're not going this place. We are so consumerized that we'll easily manipulate it into financing our own demise. Let's throw it out there in front of them. And literally, even though we only make up about 2.5% to 3% of the total economy, the total annual economy of the US, we spend about 97% of that 3% back into the white economy. We spend more back into the white economy percentage-wise than the whites do. So we have been viewed and looked at as a mechanism. First of all, and this one's gonna piss some people off, and I might get another channel snatch. You know, when you mention the word Jew, people get real itchy and everything like that. But the Jews set the model. When we were talking about integrating, this is a quick one. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna. When we were talking about integrating, 50s and 60s, we're fighting for integration. This is what Martin Luther King meant when he says, we fought for integration. I think we're going to get it, but I think I've integrated my people into a burning house. We fought for integration. We fought what we were fighting for was to be able to patronize white businesses, to go to white movie theaters, to sit in white restaurants, to ride white buses, all of this stuff. But the thing is, nobody talks about the fact that we had our own theaters, we had our own bus companies, our own cab companies. We had our own restaurants. We had all that. Well, guess what happens when you start taking your patronage, because you only have a certain amount of dollars. When you start taking those dollars out of the black businesses and start taking them to the white businesses because you want to be accepted in the white community, in the white social structure, you want to belong, you want to be a part of it, you felt left out, and you didn't see the power of being alone and building your own, and what that meant, that actually when we were by ourselves, places like Tulsa was built because we couldn't integrate. We had to have our own doctors, our own hospital, our own grocery stores, our own shoe stores, because we couldn't use theirs. And it was building power to the point it was scaring them. But we wanted to be a part of them. So what happened? The Jews said, you know what? We'll finance your entire civil rights movement, but we want you to sell us your businesses. So if you go back to the 50s and 60s, I was born in the late 60s, so I caught the back end of this. I can still remember some Jewish grocery stores in Fifth Ward, in places like that where my grandmother's beauty shop was. My grandmother, before she started to open her beauty shop, worked for a Jewish family called the Orlando's. And there was a Orlando's grocery store right there, I want to say off of Lowndes and Kelly. I might be wrong. But all of this stuff happened. So they had the stores and all the little places you're going to buy anything in the neighborhood was owned by the theaters. Everything was owned by the Jews. Then they took they took the money they were making and they bought up Hollywood, bought into and invested deeply into the jewelry industry, especially gems and jewels, loose jewels, and as well as the accounting industry. They found their place in three primary areas: entertainment, through Hollywood, media, through the jewelry industry, and in the accounting industry. Those are the areas they dominate. And then they sold those businesses they bought from blacks to Arabs and Asians and gave them the blueprint. And the Arabs and Asians are still running amok in black communities because we decided we wanted to put our money into a white economy. That's what integration is. It's saying I want to spend my money with you instead of spending my money with my people. And that's what happens. It's not about acceptance. Even when they take your money, they don't accept you. You're going to have a certain group of people that see you a certain way, a certain group of people that see you a different way, no matter what you do. Just because you have the money to spend in their business doesn't mean they see you the same as they see their own people. That's not how that works. You can't buy your way into acceptance. And the first thing you have to learn about acceptance anyway is that you have to first learn to accept yourself. And the beautiful thing about accepting yourself is that when you accept yourself, you stop desiring other people to do it. When you become aware of who you are, you become good with who you are. You stop hoping someone else sees it and you see it in yourself. And then you start to look for people who can see it and appreciate it in you, and you work with them. You don't beg anybody to like you. You don't beg anybody to sit at their table. They don't want you at your table, build your own. That's what we were doing before integration became something that we had to get involved in. And so, what am I saying? I could say a whole lot, go off into it, but at the end of the day, we didn't win with that. Now, like I said, if you're just saying I want me some shoes and I ain't worried about the rest of it, good for you. But if you're really talking about making a move and making a difference, getting behind figureheads is not how we're going to win it. It's grassroots efforts, boots on the ground. It's building a black agenda. It's establishing Black protocols that will dictate how we respond to every possible situation. It's by creating think tanks that will allow us to analyze, break down, and come up with solutions before problems ever arise. That's another way we're losing. They have over 1,200 to 1,300 think tanks that go everything from education, mass incarceration, every way that you can possibly think of how they're sustaining what they have, and by way of power, economic fluidity, and downright wealth. They have think tanks that literally look at every situation and come up with ideas of how to screw us over, how to get our money without giving us anything of real true substance in return. We have maybe one or two. I know the Harvest Institute, created by Dr. Claude Anderson, was the only one that I found that had any real true teeth with it, that were actually trying to come up with solutions. You got some brilliant minds out there. Some you know, some you don't know, but we need to be pulling everyone together to sit down to come up with protocols, little listed protocols. When this happens, this is what you do. Those groups that are winning have protocols. They know what to do in every situation. They don't react when something happens. They go to protocol. If it's protocol 5, they do protocol 5. You don't have to do anything with how I feel. Protocol 5 demands that we do this, and this situation is done. That's how you get up there on code. White people have a protocol that says when a white person, no matter how stupid and dumb and ignorant they are, gets in trouble with another group, specifically and especially Blacks, and they are in trouble, I don't care how wrong they are, we back them. That's how Darren Wilson ended up with $550,000 for shooting Mike Brown. They get on code. The reason you got President Trump in office right now is white people get on code. We're the only ones that are acting based on our feeling. I don't like him. I don't like him, man. I can't stand that name, man. Screw this. I don't like. We are never, never, ever on code. And those are the things we got protocol. We need codes of conduct. There are certain behaviors that cannot be acceptable within the Black community. We, in many ways, we are our worst enemy. The enemy within makes us vulnerable to the enemy without. Those are things that we have to look at. But that was not a win. We didn't show them. We rode a wave. They got richer. We got happy. We had fun. We got the moral victory. We should be tired of taking moral victories. Just like the impeachment. That may not even be an impeachment now, because they didn't turn over the articles of impeachment to the Senate. Now the court is going to rule whether the impeachment is really actually an impeachment. But they got us all riled up. Everybody's running around talking about impeachment without even knowing what impeachment meant, thinking that he was automatically going to be removed, not understanding and knowing how and what is required for him to remove, not understanding that you had a majority Republican Senate that was hell-bent on making sure they didn't lose a Republican president. You got to understand how politics work. There was no way that was going to go through the Senate. The only reason it made it through the House is because the House now has a majority Democrats. Of Democrats. But here's the thing. I asked the question when it was all going on. If he is impeached, and even if he's removed, how does it benefit us? Not emotionally, not because we happy, not because we again living vicariously through other situations and just happy he got what came to him. That's a moral victory. It doesn't put your kid in a better school. It doesn't give you more access to the kind of currency and resources you need to start your business. It does not do anything for you at all. It's just they know that the majority of Black people don't like dude, so we're gonna play on that. They're trying to rebuild and reestablish and reset their black base, because their Black base fell off when they tried to shove Kamala Harris down our throat. No, see, we're living in a new era where we got information that we can learn, we can share, we can grow. We're not falling for the be nice to us and we're going to vote for you okie doke anymore. We're going to need some receipts. We're going to need some policies. We're going to need to see how you plan on serving our interests. And if you can't show us, you can't have our vote. So now we're bots and misinformation campaigns. We've been called everything. you know, by their black minions, their black faces that they're putting out there, the Joy Reids, the Oprahs, and everybody else, Roland Martin and all of them that are sitting up and saying no, we're the ones that actually pull the receipts. We didn't just jump on them because they were black and say you got to vote for them because they're black and Democrat. We say, what did they do? When we pull her records, we show that she was hella destructive to the black family in California. She's been consistently anti-black in her policies, in the way she's executed her job. We can pull that. It's not about feelings. It's about what I can see. So yeah, we didn't bite on it, and we shared it. Yeah, we shared it every chance we got. We shared it. We talked about it. A lot of people don't like it. You just hating. No, I'm not just hating. I don't hate on anybody. My thing is, I don't even care what color you are when it comes to protecting my interests. I care about whether I can trust you and whether you got a policy that I can look at, understand, and believe that it's going to benefit me and my people. If you can show me that you can be green, and I'm gonna sit up there until you show me that I can't trust you, and then I'm gonna cut you loose. But when I'm looking at you, you can't pop up and say, "Look at me, bro, I'm black." I don't care. I've been burnt by black people before, and we've been burnt by black people before. We got burnt real good. So no, we're not going to buy it. We need to see some real, true, tangible evidence of who you are and what you're about and what your past looks like. And when we pull your receipts, if it says that you're lying to me, you're automatically out there. You're trying to pull the wool over my eyes. But at the end of the day, Nike won, Cap won, black people zero. None of that money flowed into any of the programs that are actually putting in work that will enrich the black community, not just financially and economically, enrich the community by way of culture, enrich the community by way of identity, enrich the community by way of holistically educating our youth and preparing them and empowering them to go out into a world that's inherently hostile towards them and not only compete but win. That's where we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to stop sending our kids to college and accruing debt and find a way to educate them and empower them with skills that they can go out and work with that doesn't require them to get $100,000 in debt and behind. You can't build. The number one enemy to wealth is debt. So you can't start out with $100,000 of debt and get a job that's paying you $40,000 or $50,000 and think you're going to work your way out of that, because the vast majority of that $40,000 or $50,000 going towards your lifestyle. That's why I literally know people in their 50s still paying off their student loans. That's a hustle. On that note, look, I got to get out of here. Thank you guys for stopping by. My thing is, take the time to understand how things work. Don't buy it into the old school of thought, because that hasn't gotten us anywhere. We, as Dr. Anderson has so frequently said, that on the eve of the Civil War, 1960, blacks owned about 1 to 1.5%. I think he puts it at about 0.5% of the nation's wealth. We are 150 plus years removed from slavery, and we still at about 1 to 2%. We've gained no ground. 2% to tops, 2.5 tops percent of the total gross economy. We talk about the 4 trillion, and 4 trillion is a lot of money if you know what to do with it. You can grow it, you can leverage it. You can build that, you can grow that out. You can also create other resources so that we are operating on other things outside of currency, so that we don't become crippled by capitalism. We don't become a slave to capitalism. We can use capitalism. We can even weaponize capitalism and use it against those who have been using it against us. But what we can't do is do it without understanding how it works. Oh, it's a game to be played, and we're going to have to get our minds right if we're going to play it. See, what happens with a lot of us is we learn the game, we go out and get good, and we forget about our people. Some of us out there eating and don't care. My whole thing is, I want to tell everybody, you can eat. I don't care what happens. That was something where, it got kind of tense for a while, but I'm not real big with going after any other personality. I'm not here to fight with any of my brothers and sisters, not even when I don't agree with you. Unless I see you purposely harming my people, you can have your philosophy, I can have mine. Where we agree at, we'll meet at, we'll talk, have a ball. Where we don't, we keep it moving. I'm not going to be one of those that attack, but that was one point I was making. that I did address. I didn't attack the person, but I did address the point that we've been locked out of the economy permanently. No, we've been locked out as long as we acquiesce to the rules the way they set them. We've been locked out as long as we allow them to take the lead and tell us what we can and cannot have. We will be locked out as long as we sit up and think that the only way to get ahead is to ask and beg them for a seat at their table. It is when we decide that if they won't give us a seat, we'll do what they did in Tulsa. We'll build one. We'll do what they did in Rosewood. We'll build one. We'll do what they did in Slocum, Texas. We'll build one. We'll do what they did in Wilmington, Delaware. We'll build one. We'll build and we'll keep building. But this time, we're going to have a knowledge of military science. We'll have a knowledge of political science. We'll understand why we are building. We also have to have a military strategy of how we're going to insulate ourselves from outside attacks. We got to have a political strategy so we can create global and geopolitical allies outside the boundaries of the country so that they can speak on our behalf if things start to go south here before the United Nations. You've got to have an understanding of military and political science to play the game. You can't sit in a situation where you are a minority and the oppressing group outnumbers you drastically without having. How do you think the nation of Israel sits in the middle of Arabs that cannot stand it? Every country around them is Arab. It has Arab history and can't stand it with love. Nothing more to blow that little bitty country off the map. Why do you think they can't? Allies. Two of the most powerful military forces are allies with Israel, the US and Britain. It comes at a price to attack them. Don't get me wrong, they have a pretty nice Air Force and their anti-terrorism units are elite. But when you got everything around you sitting there waiting to blow you up, you got to have. That's what Tulsa didn't understand. They had economic science down. They knew how to build money. They didn't know how to protect themselves. They didn't know the importance of building allies, political allies on a local level. Greasing the palms of the right people would have kept the white people, yes, would have kept the other white people from coming over there burning it down. People in the position of power that you are actually empowering don't want to lose that power, and you have to learn how to play the game. I could go on and on, but I'm going to stop. Look, it's up to us. It's up to us to become aware of what's going on. You can't look at what we've done and say in 150 years we've gained a route and think we've done it right. We act on our emotions. We sit up and we allow propaganda to be the guiding force and the narrative that we read and understand and believe. We never sit down and we never take time to actually think things through of how we're going to act, how we're going to behave. And God forbid we get a little success and get a decent job, and we start to be able to pretend we are keeping up with the Joneses, and we forget all about true liberation, true power. And that's when you can sit up and create something for yourself and you don't need their permission. Let me leave you with this question, something to think about. Integration and no building has put us in a situation where we can't employ our own, not in the way of employing the vast majority of the 45 to 48 million blacks in this country. Obviously all of those aren't employed age. So let's just say 27 million to 28 million of them are employable at an employable age. We can't do that. So let me ask you a question. If it really got hot and heated, if it really gets down to it, and they're talking Civil War and a bunch of other stuff that if you haven't paid attention, you haven't heard. And the Civil War will be fought a lot differently than it was fought the first time around. There won't be no front lines. It's going to be fought a lot different. But let's say that things get hectic and whites say the one way that we can win is by crippling blacks economically, and we're just going to sit up and we're going to fire them. If every black got fired, how many could find a way to make ends meet? How many are in a position to do something different? See, you've been given this illusion that America is this highly moral entity and nation, and you're not paying attention to the dirt that it does, and the dirt that it's always done, and the dirt it does abroad, and the dirt it does domestically. and you actually believe that there'll never be that, they are study gutting things that keep this country in a position of fluidity and economic stability. And it's on purpose. And if you don't understand it, you're not going to get it, and you're going to get blindsided. But the question is, again, if all blacks were fired, how would we survive? The vast majority of blacks are working for white bosses, white-owned companies. What would happen? If you don't have the answer to that, there's a problem. This isn't about popularity. This is about truth. And like I told you, I'm not in it to be popular. I'm not in it to be liked. I'm in here to drop it. And people don't want to hear that, because people want to be accepted and liked. You have to be in a position to be autonomous. And once you become autonomous, you'll have people that'll like you, and you have people that don't, but it won't matter to you. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and get out there. I wasn't planning on being this long anyway.